All right, cool. So let's jump into the conversation about psychedelics, something I've been fascinated by recently. Describe what you perceive as the legal and cultural future of psychedelic use in the United States. And to what extent and what ways do you think culture and law influence each other?
That's a great question. So first, I would say we have to separate the legal from the cultural. The legal future of psychedelics is looking, well, it's weird. It was looking promising, but recently there's been the FDA had a panel discussion about the benefits of MDMA, where they voted 10-1 against the overall benefits of MDMA, which to me is absolutely insane. One of the reasons that they voted 10-1 against it was because they said there were too many white people in the study, as if psychedelic drugs affect different people of different heritages in different ways, which is absolutely ridiculous. So
they don't?
No, of course not. Any more than aspirin affects somebody in a different way, you know? So this panel got together, and it doesn't necessarily mean that MDMA will not be pushed forward as a therapeutic agent. But what it does mean is that there are aspects of critical social justice making these decisions. And I think that that might be a mistake.
All right. So we're going to drill down on the critical social justice aspect. I want to get some of the context for what you do and what your perceptions of what's happening in, it's referred to as psychedelia, is that correct?
Psychedelia, yes.
Okay. So assuming at least in the short term that psychedelic use continues to be criminalized or illegal, how do you think users will know that their products are safe? And how are psychedelics manufactured? How will that process be influenced by the fentanyl crisis, or will it?
It will absolutely be impacted by the fentanyl crisis. There's no doubt about that. I'm very fortunate because I've been involved in this field for 25 years. So I know chemists that make all my stuff for me, and there's no fentanyl in any of it. What we can do is educate people on how to test for fentanyl or any sort of dangerous substance in a drug. But beyond that, there's really not too much. I mean, we are in the infancy stages of this.
Of what?
Of psychedelia, the reintroduction of psychedelics into mainstream culture. And there are so many variables that go into this. And some researchers are very sensitive to those variables. Other researchers, not at all. And we sort of need to get everybody on the same page about this stuff.
What variables?
The environment a person takes a psychedelic in, the mental state a person takes a psychedelic in, the amount that they take a psychedelic, all of these are variables that will contribute to the experience. You have dogs, I have a kitty cat. If your dogs, Gaia forbid, ever got hit by a car, taking magic mushrooms or LSD is, I would advise against that, because you're not in the right mental space to handle that sort of tragedy. If something happened to my kitty cat, I mean, I wouldn't even touch cannabis for a few days, because I'd be like, oh, no, I'm thinking about my kitty cat. So the mind of the person, and not just the mind, but the environment, not just the immediate environment, like they're just not being in a beautiful place like this, but the cultural environment makes an enormous difference in how someone's going to respond to these medicines.
Leary would say the set and the setting.
Yeah, set and setting had been determined before Leary. He popularized that.
Okay.
But you had, during the 1950s, you had psychologists and psychiatrists talking about set and setting. I mean, they didn't use those words yet. That certainly, it hadn't been coined yet. But they absolutely knew. Dr. Juliana Day, back in the 1950s, knew, and she was very sensitive to a person under psychedelia. And while other doctors would interrupt a person under LSD, under mushrooms, she would let them speak. She'd raise the blinds on her windows just to get more sunlight in. If she saw that a person was crying, or she would grab a Kleenex and give it to them. All of that contributes to setting. Just knowing that you have a facilitator with you who is going to do everything within their power to make sure that you have a comfortable experience, that's a huge contribution to actually having a positive experience.
So, what do you think the role of psychedelics in education should be? Should we teach abstinence, responsible use? Should we not talk about it? And when should it start? K through 12, college?
Well, there should definitely be some education about it. It's weird because our culture is not set up for an adolescent to take a psychedelic and understand the ramifications of what that can mean. I think that a psychedelic experience that's going to have any viable impact on a person should happen later in life. Now, that's only because...
What do you mean, after 18?
I know people in their 20s and 30s that are not ready to take a psychedelic. So
21,
I'm not sure that...
25?
What's that?
You mean, like, is there an age cutoff? And I realize...
No, there's a maturity cutoff.
There's a maturity cutoff.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with age. Some people mature at 18, some people mature at 25, some people mature at 40.
So you'd advocate against people under 18 taking it?
Not necessarily. I would advocate anyone under 18 that is not socially mature and culturally conscious taking LSD.
So I suppose we should back up. When someone says a psychedelic, what does that mean?
Well, for different people, psychedelic means different things. The word has kind of changed over time. The word psychedelic itself simply means mind manifesting. But if you were to ask somebody in ancient Greece, they would translate it as soul manifesting, because the word psychedelic comes from two ancient Greek words, psyche, which can mean mind or soul, and delos, meaning to manifest. We today tend to translate psyche, like we get the word psyche from psyche, as mind. But to an ancient Grecian, psyche meant soul every bit as much as it meant mind.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. So you think it deals with people's maturity states, what's going on in their lives. There are a number of factors that influence whether or not one should make the decision to take a psychedelic.
Yes, absolutely. And first and foremost is are you hesitant to take that psychedelic? If you are, do not take that psychedelic.
Oh, that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because psychedelics are non-specific amplifiers. So if you have any fear or you're unsure about the experience, fear and uncertainty are going to be amplified in the experience, and that leads to what we call a bad trip. If for me, and I'm a little woo-woo, so...
What do you mean by woo-woo?
I'm a theist. I'm not an atheist. So for me, when I take a psychedelic, how can I put this? I don't want to say that I know, because I can't know. And I don't want to say that I have faith, because it moves beyond faith. But I have a certain level of certainty that these medicines are connecting me to something divine. So I've never had a bad trip. I don't know what a bad trip is. Because when I eat mushrooms, when I drink ayahuasca, I am in the bosom of Gaia. And it's just like, here's the universe unfolding before me. Here's life, here's love, here's ecstasy, here's death, here's all of it. And it's just a remarkable experience. Now, somebody who is unprepared for that, they're going to see the death aspect of it and be like, oh my God, am I dying? They're going to get anxious about it. And that anxiety is going to be amplified.